First up, he is the writer, director, and producer of the film Belfast, nominated for 7 Academy Awards. One of my favorites. Kenneth Branagh is here. Wow. Thank you, sir. What a great pleasure. I mean that so sincerely.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Will. Thank you.
Welcome to America.
Thank you very much.
And I want Americans to see your movie, because it's a fantastic movie.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
But I feel like we need to set it up, because Americans, they're not great on history. You know, as most historical movies, when they make them for the American audience, they put like a crawl at the beginning of the movie. You know, in 1378, France was under the rule of, because otherwise,
handy.
Yeah, well, they just don't know. That's not our big thing. It's like the present and old-timey days. That's.
I think we're a lot like you, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, so I'm going to do the geography, and then I want you to do the history. I think people know that there's England. They can picture that, and next to that, the island, island of Ireland. I don't think they understand sometimes that England is really the UK, the United Kingdom, made of 4 provinces. England is one of them. Scotland, Wales, and then Northern Ireland is a piece of Ireland, but it's part of the UK, and that's where the heartaches begin.
Yeah,
so
well put.
Okay, so we're talking about 1968, your childhood, when the Troubles began. Because in that Northern Ireland part, which again, part of England, half Catholic, half Protestant, unlike Ireland itself, which is all Catholic. Okay, why did it start? Why they lived together for a long time, Protestants and Catholics in Belfast. Why did it start then?
Well, just like in your country in the mid-60s, you'll know much better than I, there was a civil rights movement, and that was definitely on the streets in the north of Ireland, and that was expressing the dissatisfaction of in the north, as you rightly say, the minority Catholic population who believed that they were not free to the same kinds of social and economic opportunities as the dominant Protestant population of the UK-controlled north. So that was expressed, the assertion of those rights was expressed through the civil rights movement from the mid-60s onwards. By 69, August 15th, 69, when the events at the beginning of this film unfold, it spills into violence. Violence that, in the case of my own particular story, was in one street, one neighbourhood. We were mainly Protestants in that street, probably 70-30, but we loved our Catholic neighbours, and we got on with our Catholic neighbours with the same size houses, with the same kinds of jobs. We did the same kind of things. And but in one fell swoop, a Protestant mob came down the street, marked the houses of the Catholics with stones. They broke the windows, essentially said, "We know where you live, time to get out." And then what followed in that awful August of 69, the summer of love here, there was the biggest displacement of population in a European city since the end of the Second World War. And hundreds of thousands of Catholics were forced to move, and there was a population rearrangement which began, as you say, a dark, dark period in the history of that part of the world of 30 years of the Troubles.
And it's so interesting, I mean, the way you bring it home in a very human way that everybody can relate to is because, I mean, you're a Protestant family.
Yeah.
And you had good parents. They kind of reminded me of my parents. You mentioned the civil rights. I lived in a house that I thought was a bit of an outlier in the 60s, an all-white town. But my parents made me understand when I was a kid what was right and wrong about what was going on in America with civil rights. And your parents sort of did the same thing. I mean, because people came and threatened you. You're Protestant. They wanted to get rid of the Catholics, and people came to your father and said, "You're either with us or against us." Okay? There's no being in the middle here. And your father stood up to that.
Well, tried to, and people did try, and in the subsequent period, people tried to live what you might call a sort of independent existence, where that really difficult thing to do of disagreeing fundamentally with someone, not translating to then hating them or rejecting them, but doing the even more difficult thing of actually trying to understand them. That was what the example he set. Thank you.
And also doing the difficult thing when people become tribal, which is what we have here in America, the very difficult thing, which is what we try to do here on this show, to sometimes no success at all, of trying to say, I'm not with either tribe.
Yeah.
I'm thinking for myself about this issue.
Yeah.
I'm not going to join with you because you hate the Catholics for reasons I do not.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what your you know, your father and your mother are telling you in this movie, and a 9-year-old has to be taught that.
It does have to be taught that, and also you have to, you know, so much as you say that is in between is that grey area. And the reason we told the story of this family's journey through the eyes of a 9-year-old is that often we forget that child's eye view of the world, which is a useful place to see the world from sometimes, not to be naive and sentimental, but because there's a simplicity to it that I think is very pure and can be very open. But it's also the price that is paid when violence comes to visit, is that, you know, that things not only get polarized, but the people whose lives will be forever affected by it, you know, across decades and decades of whatever you might call it, damage or psychic baggage or trauma or whatever it might be, which also has long-term domino knocking over effects, I think, is what gets lost in the immediate kind of standoff that is sometimes, you know, polarizing, and it can be very magnetic and compelling, leader to leader, but in the middle, there's a lot of real people with simple challenges to get through their day.
And this obviously is an issue that is still with you all these years later.
Yeah.
Why now to make the movie? I mean, you could have made it, you've been a movie maker, a director, a producer. I mean, you've made your own films for a very long time. Why at this moment in your life did you make this movie?
Well, yeah, you talked about very lovingly about your own parents, and I think one of the things that was gifted me was my parents' belief that their stories were important to them, but not special. And some of the Irish DNA was to not believe that your story was more important than somebody else's, often to an extreme degree, so that when we left Belfast in a sort of traumatic situation, but we were a loving family who managed to stay together, we never ever spoke about it. So 50 years, or we never ever, well, because the cardinal sin would be...
Well, you moved to England, right?
Yeah, we moved to England.
Now, you're Irish, but you moved to England.
Yeah.
Is that why you speak British?
Yeah, I guess it is. It's across the... I guess it is. It's because...
Because I must...
You spotted it.
Because, you know, the movie, I started to watch it, I was like, I got to put on the fucking subtitles. Because, no, really, because, I mean, the Irish accent is pretty heavy.
It is, but it's also a beautiful accent.
It is beautiful.
It is beautiful.
It's my heritage.
Exactly. It has many, many sort of complexions to it. But, you know, one of the things I wanted to do, Bill, when I left, is I just wanted to... I left the most amazing extended family, a communal street life. For me, it was another beautiful day in the neighborhood every day, and I did not understand why my friend Paddy, who happened to be Catholic, today and this morning was my friend and I could play with him, and this afternoon a man came and told me I couldn't because he's a Catholic. He's got a badge that I shouldn't approve of. That's been messing with my mind for 50 years, so that's why I wrote it.
Wow. If only they... When I was a kid, I wish they took me away from the Catholics.
Well, can I ask, may I ask you a
just,
question? May I ask you a question, which is, have you found that part of your Catholic upbringing, wherever you've arrived at now, has behaviours or a legacy that you still can't get away from? You know, that thing of the Jesuits would say, show me the kid till 7 and I'll show you the adult. Does some of it stay with you and you hate that?
Oh, fuck yes. I mean, I made a whole movie called Religulous. I'm bitter. Yeah. You know, I mean, it embittered me. We went to some catechism.
Yes, oh Christ. Yeah. Of course, I didn't mean that.
Oh, that was the main subject, yes. Well, the nuns were married to Christ.
Yes.
And apparently he was not putting out because they were mean. And they were mean to me in particular. Anyway.